Recently, I heard the story of Chris Abani. I don't know if you know him. He's a very well-known author, novelist, and he tells the story about his family in Nigeria when it was war-torn during a season of his life that was memorable for him. He describes this scenario of his mother and her 5 children, including him, trying to get from refugee camp to refugee camp to make their way to an airstrip to fly to England to safety, because her goal was to get her children out of that awful, awful situation. I wish you could have heard him as he described his 5-foot mother standing up against soldiers who tried to take his elder brother to make him a soldier, and how she fearlessly, moved from situation to situation to bring them to safety, and how during the whole ordeal she never lost her composure and she never cried. Then he paints this very interesting, amazing picture of his family in the Lisbon airport on the last leg of their trip before they went to England. It just so happened that there was a woman in the airport who noticed them. And I don't know, maybe it was a woman's intuition, a mother's intuition, and she recognized that they were in trouble. And his mother was wearing a dress that was almost see-through. The children were all hungry. And this woman came up to his mom and asked her to tell her their story. After his mom finished explaining their story, this woman did something rather amazing. She was so moved, she took her suitcase and opened it up, and she gave them everything that she had. Her clothes, her children's toys. It was then that Chris Abani's mom did something that they had not seen up until that point. She cried. Years later, Chris was trying to write the story and recapture the moment, and he remembered her crying. He remembered that up until that point she hadn't, but that day she did. And he asked his mom, "Why did you cry then?" His mom said something that was very interesting. Listen to this. You can steel your heart against any kind of trouble, any kind of horror, but the simple act of kindness from a complete stranger will outstitch you. Recently our staff sat around a room and we talked about the defining moments in our life and how so many of those moments were connected to someone who showed up in our world unexpectedly and simply demonstrated kindness by the way they treated us. I think we recognize in our lives, if we look back, at the power of this concept. When we use the word kindness, we're simply suggesting that it means to show others they're valuable by how you treat them. In other words, this word has its very root, again, in the nature of God, a kind, loving, gentle Father who treats us in a way that shows us and reminds us that we're important to Him because He created us. One of the things that we want to make sure that we do this month with children is to help them look at how we treat other people and suggest a question. The question is this: how can you treat someone in such a way that it would show them they're as valuable as they really are? This is something that God actually desires to do in us and through us. I think it's one of the very things that He desires for us as people, to use us as instruments in the lives of other people to demonstrate His kindness. I think it's the very reason why in the New Testament the Bible actually describes one of the fruit of the Spirit as being kindness. I would even go as far to say this about the fruit of the Spirit, that I am never more like God. I am never more close to God than I am when I'm treating other people the way God would have me treat them. That I'm actually demonstrating what I think about God by the way I treat those around me. So as a parent and leader, one of the most powerful things that you can do this month is help a child understand how they can cooperate with God to treat other people in a kind way. And to be honest with you, we want them to become kind of crazy about this. We want them to look for opportunities to surprise the people around them by the way they treat them. So we're going to teach kids this memory verse: do to others as you would have them do to you. It also happens to be the first week focus of our lesson. We're going to zero in on this passage and help a child understand the power of beginning to look at other people the way they would want to be treated. The question again, if we're going to teach people kindness to show other people they're valuable by how we treat them, then we ask the question, how do we treat them in such a way they will know they're valuable? One of the first things we want them to understand to do is to simply treat other people the way they would want to be treated. Another way you can treat people in such a way they know they're valuable is to simply treat them the way Jesus treated them. The second story we're going to talk about is a very familiar scene. Some of you grew up seeing the picture of Jesus with the children in Bible story world. Well, this particular story is a very, very powerful story because it presents a contrast. It was a contrast between the disciples who kind of in the moment were self-absorbed and felt like the children weren't that important, and to Jesus, who showed them and illustrated to them how important those around them were. Jesus was trying to set an example again to say to them, listen, pay attention to those around you. These children are very, very valuable. And Jesus reached into what would be considered in that culture as a group of people that weren't significant at all and gave them significance. So when you consider the question, how do you treat people to make them understand how valuable they are? Number one, you treat them the way you would want to be treated. Number two, just treat them the way Jesus treated them. And number three, understand that they belong to God. Realize and recognize that you should do to them and treat them as if they actually were God's own children. We want to visit this issue the third week with kids. I mean, what would happen if every one of us, including the children who grew up in our ministries, got in the habit of looking at everyone around them and simply supposing or assuming, hey, there's someone who belongs to God. There's a son of God. There's a daughter of God's. And if they would begin to treat them as if they really did belong to God. That's why Jesus one day emphatically said to a group of people, no, what you don't understand is when you feed a hungry man, when you give a thirsty man a drink of water, when you invite a stranger into your home and take care of them, it's as if you're doing it for me. What would happen if all of a sudden we recognized people have that kind of value to God, that Jesus in that same passage that we're going to unpack for kids referred to all of those people at those levels of life as his brother, as his sister? And then we want to end the month going to a story about Paul and Barnabas. Actually, Saul and Barnabas, before he became Paul, he at that time had a reputation of being someone who martyred Christians. He was the enemy of Christendom, such to the degree that when he ended up blind and he ended up in a situation where Barnabas or the Christians were supposed to reach out to him and bring him into the family as a new leader, they were all afraid. They all looked at him as if he was someone that they would not associate with, and Barnabas took the first step. He initiated a relationship with Saul. He demonstrated an act of kindness to someone who was supposed to be his enemy. And in doing that, started a revolution for Christendom around the world because of what Paul's ministry ultimately became. Barnabas made a choice to do for his enemy what an enemy would probably never have done for him. And he unleashed again the power of kindness. We hope as parents and as leaders that you will encourage kids to do something, to say something, to give something that would surprise the people around them, that would demonstrate just a glimpse of who God might be. To somehow establish in their heart and mind this attitude that everyone they meet, everyone who comes across their path, every friend at school, every kid in the neighborhood belongs to God, and to treat them as valuable as they really are.